We've cited all the jewels of Elmhurst, which is a term that gets used a lot, but I think the underlying beauty of almost every single one of those organizations and entities that the three of us mentioned is that they're staying current. It isn't like right now they're really good, but right on the horizon, maybe not. And I think the best example of that is, of course, the District 205 $168.5 million referendum, which passed 2-1. So what does a referendum like that say about Elmhurst 1, but the economic viability as it relates to an educational system?
I would say when that passed so definitively, as you mentioned, Ken, it's a great presentation of the community as a whole, that not only businesses are willing to invest here, but the people of Elmhurst are willing to invest here and keep the community strong. And that overflows then into supporting the Park District with the Park District's future plans and supporting our local economy, our local businesses, and cheerleading when we have new restaurants and new boutiques. And that's why we're getting the kind of retail movement that we are, that other communities aren't seeing, because people are excited about what's happening in Elmhurst.
In terms of that referendum, it actually kind of goes back to the York High School referendum almost 20 years ago. And that referendum at the time, and the numbers are pretty consistent, most communities only have about 22% of the property tax paying residents with a kid in the public school system. So you have to convince 75+% of your tax paying residents that it's of value to invest in that education. And that $87 million referendum was unheard of at the time. No school referendum had passed in DuPage County in a decade. And that referendum passed by a 3-1 margin. And so it was clear to residents the importance of having a great public school system to maintain the value of their house, to attract vibrant businesses, to bring customers into the community, to attract a well-trained and educated employee base. All those things are really important. It's still important. School districts they have a cap. So, and it was a percent or tied to the consumer price index. And when that got put in the early 90s, nobody ever anticipated that the CPI would be zero. And certainly not zero for a year or two.
Unintended circumstances.
Yes, and so they're cash strapped and their hands are tied. You have to go to referendum. And might I point out that this community also has a great Chamber of Commerce that was the first organization to endorse the York High School referendum, and we were the first major organization to endorse this last referendum as well.